For the next 31 days on the FCPA Compliance Report, we're going to be bringing you a daily tip, strategy, or idea that you can use to improve your program. Here's your host, Tom Fox, the Compliance Evangelist.
Compliance through persuasion. Small gestures can make a big difference. I recently read a biography of Dale Carnegie by Stephen Watts. Carnegie, of course, is well known for his seminal work, How to Win Friends and Influence People, first published back in 1936. I was somewhat surprised to learn that the text was drawn up largely from transcripts to lectures Carnegie was giving in New York City in the mid-1930s. Carnegie's main thesis was to provide concrete steps on how ordinary people could help master the art of persuasion. While it has been some time since I read this book, what I recall is that to influence people, one has to listen to them. For me, the book was about how to become a better listener. I cannot say enough about that skill for a CCO. If you hear any long-term CCOs speak about their jobs, they will tell you it is largely about listening to people, whether those persons are employees, senior management, or the chief executive officer, or even board members. By listening to others, you not only hear, but hopefully you will come to understand their problems. You will allow them to come to decisions themselves, and you are not in the position of telling them what to do. It is a skill that have served many CCOs very well for many years. In an unattributed article in the Financial Times entitled Persuasion for the Time Pressed, it focuses on Professor Robert Cialdini, the professor at Arizona State University. He is one of the leading proponents of persuasion science, which draws upon various disciplines, including psychology, neuroscience, and behavioral economics. He has drawn up, or rather has been in this field for 30 years and has been dubbed the godfather of influence based upon his work. One of his insights was that a corporation should have a chief persuasion officer because such a person can help bring influence upon others, and it is often the smallest changes that can make the biggest differences in an organization. In his work entitled Psychology of Persuasion, he lays out what he believes are the 6 universal principles of persuasion, which I have adapted for the compliance practitioner. Number 1, reciprocity. People will feel obligated to return favors performed for them. But for the compliance practitioner, I think this means listening and using skills to help manage risks or even high-risk areas. One of the points of compliance is that unless a transaction involves bags of cash being paid to get a deal done, there's usually a way to manage compliance risks. If you as a CCO can help an executive or company to successfully manage a high compliance risk, this will be remembered. 2, authority. Here, people look for experts to show them the way. The DOJ expects the company's compliance experts to have subject matter expertise on the FCPA and anti-corruption compliance programs. This was made clear in the FCPA Resource Guide in the 10 hallmarks of an effective compliance program. For the CCO, the insight is that you or someone in your staff must be able to answer the day-to-day questions that come up on doing business, not only in compliance with the FCPA, but with your company's compliance regime as well. Next, scarcity. Here, Cialdini takes a different tack by noting that the less a resource is available, the more people want it. For the CCO, I think this translates to the scarcity of your time. A good chunk of your time must be spent at the corporate office, but a large amount must be spent in the field. Your employee base will respond to you more often and with a deeper symbiosis if you can get out in the field and meet people. 4, liking. Noting the self-obvious, Cialdini says here that the more people like you, the more they will want to say yes to you. As noted in point 3 above, for the CCO, I think this means getting out in the field, training people who want to do business in the right way on how to do, and simply meeting and talking with them. In my corporate life, I put on contract and transactional law training literally across the world for a company's business units, and the universal response was along the line of, "Thank you for coming out here to talk to us." 5, consistency. People want to act in concert with their values. I believe that most people want to conduct their business ethically and in compliance with anti-corruption laws. By providing them a way to do, you can help them do something that they were inclined to do anyway. I once had an employee in the Far East tell me that there was more than enough business for the company to garner in the middle of the road. He did not see the need to even get close to the line of bribery and corruption. With that type of attitude, a CCO can almost be a facilitator. 6, social proof. This one can be tricky for a CCO. Here, people will look to others on what to do to guide their own behavior. This means that a compliance program must have sufficient incentives to get the message of compliance through middle management and down to the troops. Simply put, if your employees see a higher revenue producer get bonuses and promotions for conduct that may violate your code of conduct, it will come to believe, in short, that management is much more concerned about the bottom line than in doing business ethically and in compliance. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? I think these seem self-evident and maybe even simple, yet they're very well worth reminding. Number 1, a little can mean a lot. Simply going out into the field to meet people can mean something. And if you take that same tack with your key third-party distributors, key third-party commission sales agents, and key joint venture partners, it can mean a lot. 2, one of the primary keys to influencing people is to listen to them. There's one skill I've determined in leadership, it's listening, and a CCO can learn that. And number 3, a CEO can enhance their communications by using Cialdini's 6 principles of persuasion when dealing with others as well. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I'd like to thank you again for joining me for this episode of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program, and I hope you will join me for our next episode tomorrow. This podcast series on 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.